Good morning. Welcome back. Welcome back to Who Am I? What is Who Am I? If you're new to the show, or maybe you're a fan of the show and would like to hear me describe what the heck this show is. As I put in the description of the video, this is stream of consciousness. This is just me. This is me riffing. It's me integrating myself, pulling myself together, adding all the things that I know together, all the things that I care about. And we're going to riff about life. We're going to riff about possibilities. We're going to talk about our nature, our design. We're going to talk about... And the nature and design we're talking about our wholeness, our whole self. Our whole self. So this includes our soul, our vibrational aspects, our overview self, our collective self, who are we? Oh, I see that my video, which is a kind of a strange one, it's somebody's done this AI thing. It looks like some sort of a massive waterfall, but the pool it's going into is just barely even, so I know it's not real. Looks like it's on an island too, but certainly around mountains. Those look like mountain islands. It doesn't matter. I'm going to change the scene for no reason. I've changed it to one I use from time to time. I call this Forest Yoga Woman. It doesn't matter. A really good show will have me not ever changing the background, although I have a lot of slides. And I don't want to just keep going back and doing the same presentation because I do have people who are listening to me every day. At least I think they are. I think I have repeats. I've had repeat comments. Comments repeated, not repeated comments, but comments from the same people over weeks of time. So I'm thinking, I think they might be listening in between. So I don't want to bore you all with just tediously saying the same thing every time. But you can come at this subject from so many different ways that you can talk about the same subject every day and not really cover exactly the same thing. And we are talking about stuff that's really, really important, like healing the planet, ending war, understanding ourselves so well that in such a way that we transform the systems of the planet that involve human beings into, better, more beautiful and harmonious ways. But it all has to be voluntary, and it all has to be ground up, and it all has to be authentic. It has to end up being everybody, every individual, tap into your own connection to source. And from that clear position, whatever it is, from your place on the grid, you call your shots. It's the only way this is going to work. This isn't going to work if there's some sort of outside formula that we all try to conform ourselves to. We have to behave thusly, no matter how we feel, no matter what, because it's tradition, because that's what we do. That's not the answer. We have to be authentically ourselves. Now, you hear that a lot. What the hell does that mean? Be authentically yourself. Well, let's unpack some of this, because what I think it means, it has to do with understanding your nature and then flowing from your nature just the way you feel. We're sort of cautioned about that as we're growing up. We're taught to be civil and to be more, to pause and think, and not just headlong. And that is as it should be. So I realize I'm almost 5 minutes in, and I've gotten a little... What are we talking about? What am I talking about? Source energy. What is it? And how does it relate to me and my nature? And how does it relate to the universe and its vibrational nature? How does it relate to how reality comes into being? How does reality come into being? I would put a capital R on the reality. I'd put a capital B on the being. Not sure if you can put a capital C on the comes, but how does reality come into being, and how does that relate to who I am? Actually, I don't know if I finished Nassim's story, the one about him changing his nose. He did change his nose, by the way, after that meditation where he went back, spiraled back up through his past, went back into his mother's womb, traced the spiral back. You know, his father enters into the picture now. He's got both sets of genes, and he's spiraling back, trying to find, and then he finds it, and then he changes his nose and scares the little girls out of their minds. I want to know how to do this. And from my direction that I'm looking at, it totally makes sense. What he did, it's like, oh, yes, I see that. And yet, anyway, who am I? Actually, I did finish the story about Nassim changing his nose by tracing his... I think there are so many things possible. This universe is way more malleable than we think that it is. It is not nearly as fixed as we imagine that it is. As a matter of fact, it's not fixed at all. It's one of the rules of the universe, is everything changes. It's not fixed. Everything changes except for the rules that it rolls on. Those never change. But the matter, the shape of the matter, that always changes. It's one of the rules, fifth law of the universe. Yesterday when I went through Bashar's 135711 download, I never made it to 11, and I actually don't know what the 11 points are. I know they refer to the following of your bliss, the 7 elements of your bliss, or whatever, because from Bashar's point of view, he's got a formula where at any moment in time, you look around for the most interesting thing going in that moment, the thing that has the most juice, the most interest, that's where you want to go. Now, there might be things stopping you, fears and cautions and considerations, but somehow you got to figure this formula where at any given moment you just keep following whatever the most excitement is until you run out of it, and then you can't go any farther. If you follow it every day all the way to the end of the day will be complete. There will be nothing in the day that you should have done that you didn't get to. If you follow the highest excitement every moment until you've run out of it, and then look for the next one, and even unto, enthusiastically, you're all tired and you just throw yourself in bed because you're excited about going to bed. You will know that there isn't anything else today that you should have done. Anyway, I don't really know exactly what his 11 points of joy or bliss or excitement or whatever he calls it. I don't know what it is, but I know that's what his 11 points are. In his 135711 download, the 1 is just the allness, the almighty that we are a part of. And the 3 is you go to the binary perspective, which everybody thinks that's it. But actually that's not it, because when you're looking at the binary, the polarized position, the way over here and the way over there, it implies a middle point where you can see both points. That's where you're standing when you look at the binary. And when you see it that way, you're not fooled by it. You don't see it as a polarized universe. You don't see it as a it's not binary. That's not the word I'm looking for. Hold on. I know what the word is. Duality. You see it in duality, but when you're standing there looking at the two sides of the duality, you're standing in a third point. A blessed third point completes a triangle, and it's holy. It's a trinity. It's a holy trinity. This reflects back. This is why religions have focused on this aspect, this point, this idea of the Holy Trinity. What is that? As a matter of fact, I wouldn't take away your religious views for a moment. I wouldn't take away anything from you. I wish only to add one little perspective. And once you've added this perspective in, it's possible that when you look back at your own perspective, it might be fuller. I certainly don't want you to subtract anything that you've been doing and go, oh, well, this is wrong. I'm going to go with her. No. This is an exercise in addition. Actually, somebody left a comment on my show yesterday, and they gave me an idea that I find interesting. Highlighted something I've already thought about, but the idea of what you're doing as you integrate yourself, as you pull yourself together, you're holding your field together. You are pulling your field together and keeping it together. And you're doing that. You're holding on to the strength of the integrity of your field. Helps you weather the storms of chaos that are going to come at you. The organized storms of chaos. The MAGA people are coming for you, baby. And they're mad. They're mad about all kinds of things. About, people coming across the border and people not respecting this and people misbehaving that way. And, look at what those people did. And these people are to blame, or whatever. And their storms of organized chaos, their organized anger and blame and whatever, you're going to be able to hold yourself together if you just keep it together. Anyway, I'm not afraid of the MAGA. Well, maybe just a little bit. But I won't act on that. I won't act from a place of fear because that won't be the right way. You have to act from your positive self. Your negative self contains a flaw in it. It contains a poison frequency. It has to do with you being faced backwards, trying to move forward. You move yourself forward, but you're not facing forward. And so you create this echo, this negative energy, this shadow self, created every time you act from your negative self instead of from your positive self, or act from a negative impetus, act from a negative root form, like the thought that you are acting from has a grain of negative frequency running through it, a fearful intention, one that is not, because it's a toggle switch. It's love or fear. It's growth or protection. It's forwards or backwards. It's not there's no nuance to it in a way. But it can be such a small piece of the root you started with and such a small negative to begin with that you don't notice it at first. But if you let it go and the momentum ensues, and momentum does ensue, momentum of all kinds of things are going on around us all the time. You can see the momentum of all kinds of ideas and all kinds of projects. And some of them are in alignment and some of them are not in alignment. And some of them have elements of alignment in them, but they got big pieces that are not in alignment, and they didn't look big when the project was started, but as the momentum keeps going of the project, whatever it is that you're doing, that negative frequency in there is going to end up being a problem. We need to be clear. You know, I don't know if many people followed what the heck I meant by all of that. It was pretty esoteric. I was way in the unconditional, but if you followed me, God bless you. Thank you. That's why I turn on the microphone and put it out there so that I'm not just speaking this gibberish to myself. It helps me. I really am talking about something. It's like, for instance, so we have our I'm going to get into some wild stuff, and I hope that I don't lose you. I usually mean to stay incredibly unconditional in what I speak about. I stay in the unconditional because then it applies no matter what your specific condition in. Whether you're working on, getting that lover that you want to notice you, to be your lover, or whether you're in a war zone trying to figure out how to manage your positive and negative emotions, or how to deal with the thoughts that you have that are, tearing you apart inside about, massively blameful, hateful thoughts that you're having, and how do you deal with that? How do you understand who you really are and who they are and what's going on? Excuse me. So usually I stay in the unconditional so that when we talk about, our binary nature and the meaning of our positive and negative emotions and stuff, it really doesn't matter where you are. You can look at it and go, okay, this applies to me. I might get a little more specific because I'm going to talk about something that maybe some people haven't really thought about so much. You might revere our health system, our Western modes of healthcare. You might revere it, and you might be offended if I, speak in any kind of skepticism about it. But there is a poison vein running through the entirety of our collective commercial healthcare system. And I didn't really mean commercial in this sense because I'm going to go after the money profit motive, although you could, and it does relate back. But back in the 80s, I was in my 20s. So I was born in 1960. So every decade is a decade for us collectively and for me individually. The 70s were my teens, and the 80s were my 20s. And like that. The 90s were my 30s. And I had my children, my twins were born in 90. And so they'd have the same thing. Their decades are the world's decades. And the decades of my children, so they're on the decade for me too. So my children were going through this stage through my 30s. It's actually really, really slick and smooth the way I get to think about that because of how I was born. I'm very grateful for that. But in the 80s, I discovered the most horrific travesty I could possibly imagine. And I can't even bear to even go look and see what the state of it is now. Whatever still exists of this trade must have gone far underground to be put up with by the rest of us, perhaps. I don't know. There might be a lot of people that still believe that you can torture animals to death for human purposes and it will be good for human health. But I discovered vivisection. I discovered the monstrosity that is vivisection that had been going on. It was a practice that had been going on for a long time. It was actually substantially put into systemic practice. Not that John D. Rockefeller practiced it, but the way he was considered a philanthropist. And right around, just after the time he was forced to bust up Standard Oil and diversify out into different things, He philanthropized a lot of things that we live with today, systems that we have in place today that he helped put into place back around 1913 when he helped set up everything from doctors, from medical colleges and law systems and pharmaceutical companies and hospitals and a whole interconnected system of putting drugs to market, getting drugs onto the market, and how you have to test them legally in order for you not to be liable for any of the damages that you might do by putting bad drugs out there. And a bunch of the system that was put into place back then included vivisection, and as of the 80s still very much included it, and probably still includes it today, although hopefully we are incrementally getting off of it at least, although we ought to, reject it entirely as being both immoral and flawed in its, it actually, even with all of the testing, all of the legal testing, we end up with things on the market all the time that are not safe. People get addicted to them, or they do terrible things. But thalidomide still made it to market. And I don't know if you remember thalidomide, but it was a drug specifically given to pregnant women, and it ended up causing them to give birth to babies that had no arms, and some of them had no legs. They just had hands that just went straight out from their shoulders. Can you imagine anything more shocking and horrible and tragic? Thalidomide, oh my goodness. It didn't cause that in the fetuses of rats and lab mice or whatever, lab rats. It didn't cause that, but it caused it in human beings. Human beings are different. We are all different. And the answer is, so the reason I bring that up, why do I even bring that up? Vivisection, because I believe that in the field of medicine there is a great deal of goodwill and good intention practiced by many doctors, by many nurses, by many people operating within even our commercial regular healthcare system. And so there's a lot of potentially good coming out of there, but the fact is that there are some poison threads in there that is messing up the whole thing, really making it a problem. The fact that they don't recognize our vibrational being, and that you're seen kind of akin to like an automobile. And a doctor's kind of like a mechanic, and they're looking at you pretty much physically and not giving you much credit from the inside to be able to change things from the inside, when actually that's exactly where we should be being taught to change ourselves, is from the inside. We should be going to schools more like Hogwarts, although not like Hogwarts. Let's don't do that. We can do way better than Hogwarts. But we should be learning the magic that we are. Can you imagine if we were learning about the universe in such a way where we were seeing the possibilities? I'll tell you something. I've said this on my show before. I haven't said it for a few days, though. And it struck me when I heard it as really important. So I know this already. Your state of being, the state of being of you, as you address the world in whatever capacity you are addressing the world, whatever you're doing, Are you a party planner or a lawyer or an actor or an artist or a general or a private or a housewife or whatever it is you're doing? The state of mind that you are in is the most important factor for you in your situation. From your point of view, your perspective, your state of being is the most important factor, because that is indicative of how well you're doing vibrationally between you and your greater self. And so, depending on your state of being, the outside world will appear differently to you. So if you are in any kind of a positive, playful state, a playful attitude from your perspective will make the universe appear more clay-like to you. Now, conversely, if you are not addressing whatever your situation is, playfully, if you're addressing it harshly and from a negative standpoint, the more negative you are, as a matter of fact, the second that you enter into any negative state at all, the world around you sort of rigidifies in a way. It becomes harsher, harder, flintier, more heartless and more distant. That's what it feels like to you when you are in a negative state of any sort. And now from that position, it's hard to rendezvous with the right things. It's hard to get your timing into correctness. It's hard to flow with the rest of, synchronistically with the rest of the group, in any kind of meaningful way, because you're out of alignment with your inner being. Your own alignment is the most important factor to you, bar nothing else. There is nothing else more important, because you're going to deal with everything else. But your alignment, it's sort of like, think of yourself as a vehicle. And think of yourself as your alignment being, okay, if I'm in alignment, then I'm pinging the right impulses from source, and I'm getting correct advice from my broader perspective. The part of me that's sort of floating up above us all and can see all of us, me included, the labyrinth we're walking. It can see all the pitfalls. It knows where what I want is. It knows where the treasure is. It's almost like a video game, You could think of it like a video game. But nobody else is playing this. It's, when you think of this being a simulation, and then you imagine somebody else is projecting it from somewhere else. This isn't being projected from anywhere else, okay? This is you doing it. You are doing it. And who you are is a frequency. And that frequency is a continuum also. And it's also a vibration. That's all of who you really are. And you have brought yourself into this physical body, into this 3D situation. And you've got projects going on. Projects on the ground. Project Freedom! Project America! Project Humanity! Get my idea? And I don't know where you are on that. Now, you may not be Project America. You might be Project, Italy or whatever, and doing Project Humanity. We're all coming at this together, and actually from a true human perspective, there is a place where we are not in disagreement with one another. We are not in resistance to one another, where what you want dovetails exactly with what I want. Abundance, clarity, efficiency, joy, connection, communication. I want humanity to be in alignment with the field around us, so that we are in the business of creating more and more and more abundance. More and more clarity, more connections to our love, more connections to the fun and the play and the joy that we really all are. We are joyful, playful creatures. We are, as Abraham says, the otters of the universe. When we play the violin, it makes the angels weep. We are so beautiful. We are so amazing. And yet we spend so much of our time focusing on all the places where we are crap and stupid and wrong. And we shouldn't do that, actually. And we wouldn't do that if we would pay attention to how we feel. Because as soon as you start getting down on us, start thinking about how awful we are, it feels really bad. You should care about how you feel and lean into and focus on how great we are. Because, you know, it is from that direction that we are going to be able to fix our problems. And, you know, I think that a lot of what humanity's problem is low self-esteem. And we have this low self-esteem because we tend to focus on where we are wrong and where we are stupid and where we are evil and wicked and hurtful and unkind and such. We tend to focus over there. It is true, we are that way. But the reason we are that way, I believe, is because we don't know who we are. That really the wicked would be less wicked if they understood the construction of the situation. Now, our religions kind of try to tell us things, you know, when you finally realize how important the cardinal virtues are to your actual reality and who you actually are, the clarity of the frequencies that really are composed of you, they are the noble qualities, honor, let's see, what would they be? Honor, truthfulness, kindness, love. I can't even think of them. For a second, I could see the cardinal virtues. What are they? You can think of the cardinal sin, sloth, and, you know, you can focus over there. Anyway, you don't cultivate those virtues because your church tells you to and because it's good for you. It's because when you find your clarity, being honest, being your best self, trying to be true to your highest self inside of you is just something that you don't do it to be noble. And as a matter of fact, you don't think that way at all. To do it to be noble is to have too much of an eye as to what other people think when they look at you being so noble. This is what you do, not thinking that people are looking at you at all. You just do it for yourself because it makes your own life work better. Your equations come out cleaner. You know, your children still talk to you. Your children are honored when you say, hey, come on over and have dinner. And we haven't seen you. We miss you. That kind of thing. You do that. Never mind. Who am I? And how is all of this going to get us off fossil fuel? And we don't really want to hate on fossil fuel. We just have to recognize that its day is past. And somebody is artificially holding it to us a little longer. Because they believe, I think, there's two reasons. I mean, down deep, you can think of their crass motives. They want to protect the hundreds of trillions of dollars of economic activity that they can control, you know, as long as it's hinging on fossil fuel and they control the fossil fuel. There is that. That's the cynical side, but there's a bit of truth to that, for sure. People have done a lot less wicked things for, you know, hundreds of trillions of dollars. They've done quite a bit for, you know, $10,000 can inspire some people to do murder. But there's more to it. I think that there actually is somebody somewhere who thinks that our national security, our global security, actually is served better for us all not to have free, clean energy at the point of demand. Well, there's going to be a collapse of something. For one thing, there's a whole lot of people that own a lot of economic activity that is going to turn into vapor as soon as free, clean, easy energy everywhere, anywhere for anyone to have at any time for any reason. All of a sudden, all of their economic shares are going to be meaningless, and all of their power to do things based on it is going to evaporate, and all of the momentum of all of the structures involved with all of that are going to collapse. And our economic system is going to have a big issue too, because the whole thing, it used to be based on a gold standard, and then it was kind of like just backed by the dollar somehow, because the America was all strong and solid. And then now it's kind of a petrodollar. It's based on energy units that people can trade on the open market. And they take their gasoline home and they pour it into their truck and they run their orchard and whatever. That's how it's working right now. But as soon as you put all the energy that anybody could possibly want immediately onto the market, there's going to be some major shifts there where some people are going to be left holding nothing, and other people are going to be sitting on all these ideas and all this stuff that they can do, and now all of a sudden they have the power, the energy to do it. And the world is going to change, and a lot of things are going to get fixed, and a lot of other things are going to get, some cans of worms are going to get sealed up and all cleaned up, and other ones are going to be, new ones are going to be opened. And the whole world's going to be different. We're going to have a whole new set of things to push back against. And I think that the idea of cult leaders and cults in general, and the question of who am I, is going to get way more insistent, because as the tribes spread out into the wilderness, you take a plane and you fly over the world, and you actually see that there's a lot of places where there aren't any people. Now, you realize that the world isn't nearly as densely populated as we are led to believe, because the dense population is mostly all in places where we have infrastructure, human infrastructure, because that's how you can accommodate the density. Human infrastructure. And these days it means you got to have roads, you got to have houses that are wired, the construction of them inside, they're built in layers as the electricity is put in, and then the pipes for the water, and the climate control, and all of the different things. But the infrastructure of electricity, of power, of how things are powered, this is going to be way different when you have free, clean energy that's coming directly out of the vacuum. And what's the vacuum? It's the Dirac sea, the quantum field, the 0-point energy field, the matrix, the divine matrix that we are all embedded in, that we are all made of. And your true self is not actually, the border of your true self does not end actually at your skin. You do have control over a certain momentum and a certain spin, a certain individuation of your spin you have control over, that is centered around your body, to be sure, that's centered at your mind point, actually. It's centered at your physical mind. And your physical mind is actually vibrational. Isn't that interesting? You can, it can be measured with a new testing device. It's called a magnetoencephalogram, and it sits outside your head, kind of like an old-fashioned hair dryer, and it measures your brain, your mind. It measures your brain activity. It can be measured. It's going on outside of your skull. There's a field that you are producing. Your brain is producing a thought field. And your source mind already has one, a thought field that includes everything, by the way. It includes everybody. Includes all of your thoughts and all of your source thoughts and all of their source. It includes everything. And your emotions are actually coming from whether or not your thoughts are blending with your source mind's thoughts or not. They just need to be blending in frequency, in the spirit. Your being, your greater self, is in a spirit of joy, of sure-footedness, of security, of love and connection and interest. She's thinking about projects going on in life around you, how things are getting better, more comfortable, more clear, more understood, more in harmonious alignment with one another, more in synchronistic, joyful, helpful expression with one another. We really are getting better. Now, there is another storm over there of the chaos that is becoming more also. And if you focus over there, you would think that we aren't getting better. But there are so many things that we are and that we do that are helping us get better. I had a clear vision of one small aspect of it that it stays with me now as just a tiny piece of a bigger picture that I can't see anymore. But I recognized it as true when I saw it. I'm a student of World War II, which I like to call the World War Part 2. Because I think that we only had the one, and I don't think we need another one. And if you're a student of how that happened and who the players were involved and how the history went down, and whose feelings were involved, and Hitler was the one who invited the world to that World War II. And his motivation, he was totally never, ever, ever done with World War I. He was still fighting World War I. And since he was the one that invited us all back to the party, I think it is legitimate to believe that it is World War I Part 2. Because it took young men all the way from being young and fighting in the first one in the 19-teens all the way through to 1945, where those young men weren't young anymore. And they fought all the way to the end, to absolute and bitter defeat. We defeated the Nazis, absolutely. And the reason that we did is because their philosophy was completely flawed, was not in alignment with reality. But Hitler was absolutely sure that it was. I mean, he was so convinced that he was right. And everyone else, if anyone else disagreed with him, well, they were wrong. And that's a flaw right there, because it's all just perspectives, and so everyone adds to the perspective. And so he was the absolute epitome of subtraction consciousness, and actually all the way up until to the most notorious thing that he did, the final solution, which is the ultimate conclusion to where you go if you think that it is possible to subtract things from the field. If I just subtracted that from the whole picture, then all the rest of it would be lovely. If we could just subtract those terrible, inferior people and leave only the superior ones, and all of us in churning always in this eternal conflict to make us stronger and to see to always be determining who is the strongest and making sure that they are the ones who rule, and that's what makes the whole thing strong or whatever. Do you hear this nonsense? Can you hear the flaw in there? Totally wrong. And so he was absolutely destined to fail. It's almost a good thing that he took it all the way to the end and would not do a what do you call it? Where you parlay, you come to an agreement that you, what is the word? I can't think of it. Negotiated peace, something like that. Hitler wasn't. They did that in World War I. They did a negotiated peace before all the resources were gone, before they had fought to the bitter end, and they had convinced Hitler in their cause. And then when they just negotiated a peace, said, you know what, it's all right. It really doesn't matter. Just go home, forget about it. We'll let you guys have it. And Hitler's like, what? What? You told us that was worth dying for, worth sacrificing everything. And then now you just drop us like a hot potato? What am I supposed to do now? And he wasn't that good at peacetime stuff, and he was kind of lazy too. And he had his ideas, and he worked on his ideas. Actually, he sat in a room all by himself and talked to himself in a mirror, until he was really solid with his ideas. Actually, there was it Bormann or was it Goering? I can't remember which one of the ones. I think it was Bormann. Helped him refine his persona and slick down his. And I know Goebbels helped him for sure down the way, but early on he had one of them when he was just all by himself and practicing his oration, his ability to put the thoughts together that he was so passionate about. He was passionately negative about, but he was passionate. Anyway, he built up a negative storm of incredible momentum and chaos and destructive power. And what did he do in his own country? He harnessed the thug factor, the angry ones, the ones who felt like life had given them a raw deal, and that were the ones who were blameful and angry, and he gave them all jobs. He put them all in high positions. Talk about the spirit running that Reich. It was terrible. And I haven't been doing my quotes. I have a series of quotes that I have lined up I have them sitting here on my computer, all up on the internet, ready for. So the quote I'm thinking of now, since I'm talking about Hitler, is the Milton Mayer one from They Thought They Were Free, where he talks about how they focused on the forms instead of the spirit, and somehow everything changed underneath their feet because they were focused on the forms. And they weren't focused on the spirit. The spirit was kind of mean and nasty going by, and had any of them been focusing on that and caring about that, they might have had to either flee or stand up to it somehow. Lovingly, kindly, without resistance somehow. So the quote has to do with, let's see, it goes, and suddenly everything, let's see, where is it? And you see that everything has changed and changed completely under your nose. The world you live in, your nation, your people, is not the world you were born in at all. The forms are all there, all untouched, all reassuring. The houses, the shops, the jobs, the meal times, the visits, the concerts and the cinemas, the holidays. But the spirit, which you never noticed because you made the lifelong mistake of identifying it with the forms, is changed. Now you live in a world of hate and fear, and the people who hate and fear do not even know it themselves. So anyway, that's one of the quotes that I like to do. There's a great Einstein quote that have I lost that one? No, here it is. I can see it. The Einstein quote is, so this has to do with your dual nature. You are two minds. Just think of that matter-of-factly. Just go there and know that you are two minds. You have your individual physical mind self, your conventional self, your free agency self, the one that can go 360 degrees in any direction. You can flow with the mothership. You can flow backwards against it, although your ride will be rougher when you do that. And this is how Einstein put it. Let's see. Einstein is widely quoted as saying this: the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. So in his vernacular here, the intuitive mind, translate that as source mind. Okay? Overview soul. The intuitive mind. And the rational mind, well, that's your conventional mind. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. That's what it is. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So we honor the rational mind, and we've completely forgotten about the other one. The fact that you even have a source mind, that you have a framework within your consciousness that you can start constructing an actual view of the actual universe, because you have source mind. You just have to line your conventional mind up with your source mind. Don't have your conventional mind all wildly doing stuff that runs against the grain of the source mind. So my last quote that I like to do has to do with Hans Kafka and the doll story. And I don't know if it's my last quote, but am I still under an hour? I think I am. I don't know. I'm not on the studio right now. I can't see how long my show is. I am 52 minutes in, so I still have time. So the Kafka and the doll story illustrates the nature, the ubiquitous spiritual nature of love that is not absolutely fixed on the forms around us. So I'm just going to read it because it's actually and when I try to paraphrase it, it only takes longer. So, at 40, Franz Kafka, who never married and had no children, walked through the park in Berlin when he met a girl who was crying because she had lost her favorite doll. She and Kafka searched for the doll unsuccessfully. Kafka told her to meet him there the next day, and they would come back to look for her. The next day, when they had not yet found the doll, Kafka gave the girl a letter. Written, I'm air quoting the word written by the doll, saying, "Please don't cry. I took a trip to see the world. I will write to you about my adventures." Thus began a story which continued until the end of Kafka's life. During their meetings, Kafka read the letters of the doll, carefully written with adventures and conversations that the girl found adorable. They became great friends, it looks like. Finally, Kafka brought back the doll. he bought one that had returned to Berlin. And of course, since he had never seen the doll, it doesn't look like my doll at all, said the girl. Kafka handed her another letter, in which the doll wrote, My travels have changed me. The little girl hugged the new doll and brought her happy home. Many years later, the now adult girl found a letter inside the doll, a tiny, tiny letter. In the tiny letter signed by Kafka, it was written, quote, and I have this as a slide actually, so I'm going to go find it. This is what was written inside the doll. Where is it? Oop. Right here. Everything you love will probably be lost, but in the end, love will return in another way. And you know, this wouldn't even be a problem if we were taught from day one to focus on our emotional state of being first, as we are then looking in reference to the world around us, and to be taught to understand what our state of being is. And that the answer is not to work around trying to muscle the condition into place. Although that will come. You'll get the inspiration for exactly what to do to make that thing that's annoying you better and less annoying. And work with other people to do it too, because they'll be doing the same thing. Who am I? So, how does this get us off fossil fuel? Well, when we really understand the matrix, the vacuum fluctuations, the Planck oscillators, how they are, so in a nutshell, let's see if I can explain exactly what it is, what it looks like, what the shape of it is. This field, this matrix that we are all a part of, that your cells are all participating in, this structure, that this relationship between all of the matter around us, and how you are related to that. First of all, it's all solid Plancks, just Plancks out there. They are teeny weeny little frequencies, so small that you really can't get another smaller one in this density. A Planck is the smallest frequency that you can get, and it actually is, it's so small. It's what all of the universe is made of. How do you get a Planck? Take a photon traveling at the speed of light, because a photon is a packet of light. It's going to be traveling at the speed of light. And I can just see how it is. I can see how it is. When it goes into organization, when it goes into spin, you call it matter, and it joins the rest of the spinning field. And when you add up all of the distances, all of the speeds of all of the different spins, it equals the speed of light. I'm sure that's what it is. That's what the speed of light is. It's all of the spins added together. From the one that you start at to the next one and the next one and the next one. What do I mean? Well, first of all, there's you in your individual spin. Actually, first, there's all of the individual spins of every one of your cells. Now there's you, which is a spin that combines all those 50 trillion spins. Then there's the spin of, I don't know how many esoteric layers of morphogenetic fields you could talk about before you hit the big one, which is all of us on this planet spinning. And then the planet's spinning around the sun, and then the sun is spinning around a galaxy, and the galaxy is spinning around the cluster, and the cluster is spinning around a supercluster, and the whole thing is churning in a toroidal motion because it is likely that the entire universe is a black hole. Spinning in a toroidal motion. And the what looks like expansion, some of it is expansion. The universe is expanding somewhat off from the Big Bang that happened when a particle, a Planck or a proton or something, came off of a universe of higher density and smaller size and higher density. Is it smaller size? Certainly it's higher density. Maybe it's larger size and higher density. I don't know. But a Planck flew off of that black hole universe through Hawking radiation, hit this density and went kaboom. That's what a Big Bang is. And we have this one Big Bang, which basically is the model of that, is a teeny-weeny point-sized, infinitely dense point that somehow expands all at once. Well, that's what caused it. So, anyway, who are you? I know I started saying that for a reason. Why was I saying that? Oh, well, I was just explaining what the field is. So it's solid packed Plancks, and when they go into organization, into spin, you call it materiality, you call it stuff, you call it atoms, and you call it stuff, the material world. And where it isn't organized, where it is just roiling in its energy without being an organized spin, the Planck field is still in a state of vacuum fluctuation. Where it's like that, it looks like space. But it's all the same thing. It's the Planck field. And there is only one thing happening. And there is oneness. And this energy field matrixes us all together, ties all of our purposes together, blends all of our lives together in this beautiful symphonic concert. And if you want to be in on the beauty of it and the perfection of it, line up with yourself. You have a template inside of you, a template to the whole thing. It is sitting there. It's a framework sitting in there in your own consciousness, allowing you to see all things. But what you have to do is put what you get, your information, you put it on the grid somewhere. You can't subtract some of it. All of it goes in there. I'm starting to babble. So what is it with this field? It's the space is full. It's not empty. And this fullness of this Planck field jiggling together and reverberating with itself and touching, zapping, it's transferring all of its information all the way up and all the way down the scales. From the small to the large, from the large to the small, it's transferring its energy and information is flowing everywhere, all the time. And we can tap into this. It's an unlimited energy source. But in order to do that, we're going to have to admit who we are. That we are the field. That we are smack dab right in the middle of this equation. That consciousness is a huge part of it. You can't walk into the physics laboratory and leave consciousness at the door. You have to bring it in with you. As a matter of fact, you may not know this, but there were members of our the forefathers of physics that are deeply revered by conventional physicists for their wisdom and their knowledge and their equations and their contribution to the great puzzle of what is reality with a capital R. They thought that it was a valid exercise they cultivated the practice of lucid dreaming. And then in their dream state, they'd go to sleep, they'd wake up in the middle of their dream, so now they're dreaming, but they're lucid in their dream, and then they would do physics experiments. Because they thought that that was really how to completely understand this universe. It's dreamlike in nature. We are dreaming it into place, and we are dreaming it through the mechanism of our perceptual equipment. I wanted a more profound word than that, but that's as good as I can get. Through our perceptual equipment, we are dreaming this enterprise into place. And depending on what you're focusing on, if you insist on focusing all the time on things that make you sad, that make you angry, that make you frightened, that make you, if you insist on focusing on the world from that perspective all the time, you are contributing to the nightmaring of our situation into place. You are not contributing to the positive coherence. You are contributing to the Shiva side of the equation, the Loki side of the equation, or the demonic side of the equation, depending on what religion you're looking at that from. It's the destructive energy, not the constructive energy, but the destructive energy. Because it spits out both ways. You got the love and gravity sucking in, and you've got the chaos and the electromagnetic fields going out the other direction. What does that mean to our lives? Well, I got a lot of things to say, because what I've noticed is if you really start noticing organization around you, you realize that all organization of all kinds, no matter what you're seeing organized, whether it's a business or a government or a sports team or a quilting group or a pinochle group or whatever, that all organization is a matter of spin. And depending on how tightly that organization is held together through positive principles, that starts determining how tight the organization is at the center of its core, how well it works, how much involved and roped into harnessed into the project the different players in it are, how committed they are, how excited they are, how positive they are, how effective it all is. You can start seeing this organization of the inner, the gravity of the inner pull. It's really very interesting, very esoteric too. I have a lot of ways of entertaining myself looking at the way the world is, other than looking at the shit show that might be organizing over there. It's all very mythological. The universe is way more mythological than we're giving it credit for in our ordinary day-to-day way. Although I understand that, because when you go to the mythological, you realize it's really quite dramatic too. And human beings being too dramatic about it all is kind of the problem to begin with. So you got to be careful about when and how you introduce the mythological aspect back into it, and you show people where and how the drama is in a way where you aren't just contributing to the chaos by being dramatic all the time, you know? That you actually see where it really is, where where the powerful negative energies really are churning, and what not to be afraid of, how to pull yourself together from your highest, best self. Who are you? I'll tell you who you are. You are the sum total of all that you have ever loved. And so the love itself is who you are, and you may have to track back through the physicality of your life in order to pick up those pieces that you have left back in where you hate your ex. You hate your ex, and so you have left your love lying in the road behind you. You got to go back and collect it and remember why you loved your ex, even while you recognize now why they're crazy and you can't live with them. Anyway, we'll talk more tomorrow about everything. I'm so glad to have you with me. I am grateful for my regulars. I'm even starting to know a couple of your names. I appreciate you. Someday we might even meet, this life or the next life. I may or may not recognize you. I'll keep you posted on whether I ever fix my eyes and how I can work that. I may have to go back and join the rest of the world in seminars and workshops and stuff to learn more than I know. This is kind of like a workshop for me every day, helping me to know the things that I do already know. We are two beings. We are all in this together. Each and every one of us with our two beings. Each and every one of us has our individual self and then the collective self we all share. And so the true answer is that we've got to find our win-win position, not the greedy, hogging, fearful, I want everything to myself on the one side and everybody else scrambling for the crumbs and everybody's out, in it for themselves and kill or be killed and survival of the fittest and competition is everything. Not that world. Not that paradigm. We are all in this together. We are all in this together, and my success is your success, and vice versa. Where is the win-win position? In every situation, ask yourself that. If you are running a business, ask yourself how you can win, and every one of your employees can too. And they will fight for your business. They will be the best face on your business ever because your success is their success. See how that formula works? It's true in every system of organization that's going to be sustainable. That's how that works. Every being within it needs to be positively served. Anyway, I'm well past my allowed time. I was going to try to make it only an hour long every day, but I bleed over 5 to 10, 12, 15 minutes every time. I'll be back tomorrow. What's today? Thursday. Ooh, I made a par yesterday. We went and played golf. That was fun. Today I got bowling. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I'm off for a week. Please go watch old shows. Wait for my return. Someday I will take my laptop with me and I will broadcast even when I travel, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that this time. In any case, I have to get off the air. I got to go take a shower and start my day. I love you. It is only my humble intention to ever help the organization of love and efficiency amongst human beings here on planet Earth. To that purpose do I dedicate my show, and do I hope that it serves that end for now and evermore. Amen. And until tomorrow, please, may the source be with you.